This is Debra V. Wilson. It is Friday, the 10th of November 2017, and the time is 500 hours and 42 minutes. That's GMT minus 6, and I'm in Canada. In the ever complex relationship between Israel and the UK and Israel, certainly the most recent chapter would be the resignation of former International Development Secretary Priti Patel, which happened on the 8th of November 2017. But I would ask you to look a wee bit further back to the 5th of November 2017 at Andrew Marr's interview of Bibi Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel. I've taken 5 minutes, just under 5 minutes of that interview, which is in total just over 16 minutes, to post for educational and research purposes only, because I think it gives some additional nuance to the dynamics and complications and complexity between Israel and the UK, and the UK and Israel in terms of their relationship. In particular, take a listen to how the PM, Bibi, conceptualizes Israel's relationship with the UK in terms of addressing extremism manifestation in the UK. It's interesting to note how Bibi understands Israel's relationship and partnership with the UK in terms of fighting extremism. Whether that partnership is understood by both parties in a similar manner, one of the parties in the relationship, and that would be Israel, perceives itself to be on the front line, not just from a global perspective, but in Israel's relationship with the UK. This is Debra V. Wilson. The clip is just under 5 minutes, as I've said several times. Give it a listen and see if it adds any nuance at all to your understanding of the UK's relationship with Israel and Israel's relationship with the UK. Thank you very much.
Syria. What they did in Lebanon, that Hariri, Prime Minister Hariri resigned over, is basically took over the country. Probably killed his father, threatened to kill him. So the same thing is being done in Syria.
The so-called ISIS, or the Islamic State.
Well, as ISIS collapses, as ISIS moves out, Iran moves in. But they want to bring their Air Force there, right next to Israel. They want to bring Shiite and Iranian divisions right next to Israel. They want to bring submarines and military vessels right into the Mediterranean, right next to Israel. So we will not let that happen. We will resist it. And
I think you would go to war to stop that happening.
You know, the more we're prepared to stop it, the less likely we'll have to resort to much greater things. There's a principle I very much adhere to, and that is nip bad things at the bud.
But if you can't, I mean, we've had rocket attacks on Riyadh in the last few days. We've had what's happened in Lebanon. Things are moving all over the place. Things are moving in the Horn of Africa. You can see this is a big, big situation. Are we drifting or moving at this stage towards a major war in the region between Iran and her allies and proxies on the one hand, and Israel and the Sunni states on the other?
You're definitely in such a conflict, and you're quite right. There is a realignment in the region. But I think it's a larger battle. It's the battle between medievalism and modernity. The forces who stand for modernity, Israel squarely does, have to fight these, have to resist the onslaught of this militant Islamism that uses rockets, terrorism, suicide bombers, and so on. and the sparks of that firmament you see on the streets of London. If medievalism wins there, you lose here. So we're really on the front line of this great battle for the future of the world, not merely the future of the Middle East, but the future of the world.
And you think Donald Trump gets it and is at your back?
I think he definitely understands that Iran is the primary problem. It probably accounts for 95% of the problems we experience now in the Middle East. And I think he gets that, and it's a good thing that he gets it.
Can I ask about the condition of Jews in this country? Because there are I've got a lot of Jewish friends, and there are a lot of Jewish community leaders who are very worried about your government, and they say that particularly the settlements issue has made it much, much harder to defend Israel in this country. We've always had anti-Semitism in Britain, but it's been quite quiet for a long time, and it is back on the rise.
Well, you know, I wouldn't blame Jews for anti-Semitism any more than I would blame blacks for racial hatred toward them or anti-gay hatred because of what they are, not what they do.
Distinction between Jews and policies.
Well, you know what happened? Theresa May gave this extraordinary speech, on the Balfour Centennial, and she said, you cannot go and attack and say that Britain has no right to exist because you oppose some of British government's policies. So Britain has a right to exist, Israel has a right to exist. You may disagree with this or that policy, but you would never question any other country's right to exist based on this or that disagreement with a policy. Yet this is what is leveled against Israel and against Israel alone.
One of the big supporters of Palestinian rights in this country is the new leader of the Labour Party, Jeremy Corbyn, who has said in the past, for instance, that we shouldn't allow free access for who he calls Israel's criminal politicians to come into this country. He might very well be Britain's Prime Minister before long. What would that do to relationships? And should you not pick up the phone and talk to him directly?
Well, first of all, the British people decide who they want to govern them. But I hope that there'll be a continuity of British policy with Israel, because here's something people don't know. That cooperation has saved many lives. Many Israeli lives, many, many British lives, because we have an intense cooperation between our security and intelligence agencies, and it is protecting Britain and it is protecting Israel. And it's something I hope will continue in the future.